So, Ash, another round of supposed Switch 2 rumors and leaks have emerged. And this first one comes from Billy. And they have shown us a video of the Switch 2 in action, specifically pulling the Joy-Con off magnetically from the system. Now, they show it completely out of focus, so you can't get a good look at this thing. What does your gut say? Do you think that this is real?
You know, it's so hard to say, right? It wouldn't surprise me if magnets ended up being on the real unit, but that's a separate issue from whether this particular video is real. And I love that the one constant with these rumors is that even in the year 2024, all of these weird leaks seem like they're being filmed with potatoes.
Yeah.
Right? They're always so out of focus. They're blurry. They're zoomed in. It's weird.
You have to go out of your way for that. Like, how are you finding a bad camera in this day and age?
The only thing I can surmise is that these are in maximum security areas where no phones or camera phones are allowed, where it's just footage captured from hidden cameras or security cameras or something, maybe. But that's a stretch in my opinion, and just the extremely low quality here leads me to believe that it's probably a fake. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if the Switch 2 maybe actually did switch to a magnetic form factor, regardless of whether or not this is real. What about you?
It's so hard to say, isn't it? They show some pretty detailed pictures of the Joy-Con as well, but it kind of feels like a copycat of the last rumor we had, where they showed like 3D printed Joy-Con, because they're
right.
that they have like the second square button on the right Joy-Con. They're a bit rounder. They've got the release for the magnet on there. Nothing points to this being legitimate. Like, it could be, but it's also exactly like what we saw last time, so it's hard to say whether this is actually real. And if it were the real deal, I think they would have shown more video. They snapped it off so quickly. It's like 2 seconds long, that clip. They could have shown more.
And it's so blurry already.
It
almost feels like they're really trying to get around having to show too much detail because it isn't real, right? So it's really hard to take this at face value, regardless of whether or not we think the actual hardware might use magnets for the Joy-Con or not.
Finlo in our live audience says the thing that makes them think it's real is they still have the IR sensor, which is interesting, because I think most people making mock-ups would probably get rid of that. But it's also, we know it's a backwards compatible system, so it doesn't necessarily need to have an IR sensor, because I imagine it would ask you to sync a Joy-Con for those games, perhaps, but also just having it in the box makes sense too. So that is a detail I think most people probably would not include, and it could be the real deal for sure. But I do think this is probably the least convincing of the three things we're going to discuss. The uploader also states that there is not enough production volume to launch in March. Neither of us thought it would release in March anyway.
No, I mean, that's a nice fantasy, of course, but with this thing, and we don't know anything about the Switch 2 official yet, and it's 3 months out from March already, basically. There's no way we're going to go from knowing nothing about this thing to a release in 3.5 months. I never believed March.
No.
Thank you.
The promise was always reveal by the end of the fiscal year, never release by the end. Releasing in March is practically impossible at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't think there's much more to say about this one, though. I think we both just conclusively don't think it's very... it could be real, but there's nothing to say that it is, really.
No, there's nothing conclusive either way, and I do think that it's more likely to not be real than real, given everything we're seeing with just the lack of detail and the blurriness, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, we also have a case leak by Alibaba, and this one, I mean, it is the real deal. It's a case. There's nothing to say about it, really.
Yeah.
But what is kind of interesting is they have also a glass cover. And they show the glass cover in comparison to a screen protector, I should say, in comparison to the Switch 1 screen protector. And we see it's 8 inches long, which has been in previous leaks and rumors. But there's also a few other details in there. Like, it doesn't seem... the screen protector doesn't seem to cover the light sensor the Switch has, which auto changes the brightness. So that might be in a different place. But otherwise, that is just an 8-inch screen protector.
And the case looks like a Switch. I mean... Yeah, and there's this logo here too, which, I mean, this is also calling it the Switch 2. Yeah, I mean, it's... What are you thinking about that logo?
I think that's a mock-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think Nintendo would be sharing their logo with
Agreed.
accessory manufacturers at this point. But I think the Switch 2 is probably it's the most logical name. I've seen like Super Switch and just the Nintendo and like names like that thrown around. I think Switch 2 is just the obvious one because we know
so,
NSO is being carried forward too, so the name Switch is probably gonna stick around.
Exactly. And also, it's a little boring, but it's also the safe option. I mean, nobody, we all remember the Wii U debacle. That's been litigated forever. But, even if it is boring, no one ever has questioned what a PlayStation 2 is compared to a PS1.
Exactly.
Let alone a PS5 compared to a 4. So even if it is kind of boring compared to something like Super Switch, it's the safest way to go, especially for a company that, went through the Wii U problem of nobody knowing what that thing was outside of enthusiasts.
Right, and they've never really done just a successor name. I guess Game Boy Advance is the closest. Like, you have DS, 3DS, and that kind of had a Wii U problem, where a lot of people just didn't really know if it was a new system or not. Less so than Wii U, but that was still an issue. Like, people still today call a 3DS just a DS. That distinction isn't always there.
Yeah, they're all just kind of called, just DS. Yeah. Exactly. So I think Switch 2... even if this logo is a mock-up, which I agree also with our live audience member, R-Man, that it looks, the 2 is a little bit off, it's a little bit askew.
Yeah.
It looks like a mock-up. It doesn't look like an official logo whatsoever.
No. Well, these are pretty quick to get through, but I guess the last one is we have from Game Reactor. And Game Reactor are sourcing one of their previous employees who is saying that the Switch 2 is ready to launch in June of 2025, or around June, maybe July. For a price between 400 and 500 euro. That sounds correct to me.
That sounds very safe and very potentially real. I'd be more surprised if that wasn't along the lines of what we're about to see.
Yeah. I think June makes a ton of sense. If it's revealed by like February, March, then that's like a 3-month build up. That makes sense to me. 400, 500 euro. Yeah, I think like 400 or 450 seems like a good price. 500 is too much.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think 400 euro, which would be like $399 probably. It'd probably be the same thing. I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I know rumors have gone a little bit back and forth on whether there are going to be, there's going to be more than one SKU, potentially one with a LED screen, one with an OLED screen. No mentions of that here, though. That's just the one SKU, the one configuration that we know of, at least from this round of rumors. Do you think it's going to just be one release?
Yeah, I do. It'd be a bummer to go from the Switch OLED back to an LCD panel. But yeah, there's still some pretty good non-OLED displays out there. OLED isn't the be-all and end-all. But if it's a downgrade from the OLED screen, though, it will be a big bummer.
Yeah, I mean, and basically everything we've heard so far that could or could not be real does indicate that it will at least be something of a downgrade, just because it isn't going to be an OLED screen from everything we know. The only possibility is that they have a more expensive SKU that does have an OLED screen, but I kind of agree. I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's impossible that they'll do 2 different configurations, but I tend to agree with you that I think it's going to just be the sole release, and then we'll have like a Nintendo Switch 2 OLED model down the line. Like we got the Switch 1.
They probably won't have stock issues in the same way that PS5 and Series X did, because for one, we're not in COVID. We're also not in a chip shortage in the same way. But also, I think they've been manufacturing these things for a while. We've had like shipping leaks from months ago. They seem very ready to have the stock there for this. But having the stock there for 2 different SKUs, that's another big ask. And I don't think that they would want to gamble that.
Yeah, I think that's probably along the lines of how I feel. I'm so ready to hear something real about this damn thing already. It has been so long, such a long time coming, and I want the official news already. These leaks are, it's always fun. The rumor mill, the leak cycle, it's always fun. But I'm getting very much to the point where I just want to hear something concrete about this damn thing.
Yeah, in the new year, I guess. I think February is probably our time. I don't think January.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, because they've got Donkey Kong Country Returns HD coming out in January.
Yeah, you can't have a shadow I know Donkey Kong.
Exactly. I know it's not going to light the sales charts on fire or anything, but they're not going to want to steal thunder even from that, it's still a game they're releasing in January. Why would they cannibalize the attention away from that when they could just wait till February for Switch 2?
Yeah. I've seen people losing their mind over all of these, and we've gone through them pretty fast. But honestly, I don't feel like there's a whole lot to say. Like, could be real, could not be real. Some of it seems a lot more concrete than others. I'm leaning mostly on that last one. I think a June, July release at €400 sounds correct.
I think so too. Do you think there's a chance they might wait beyond February only to get beyond the launch window for Xenoblade X Definitive Edition before they share anything about the Switch 2?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of these games, honestly, probably aren't huge factors, especially now that we know that they're backwards compatible. Like, it's not like you can't play these things on the Switch 2. That's probably why they announced backwards compatibility. Like, just say, like, you can keep buying software. It won't be, obsolete. From what we know so far, there isn't really a game that couldn't exist in the realm of Switch 2 existing too. We're talking about DKC Returns, but it's also a Wii game. It's not like a huge brand new thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just feel like January's a bit too soon in the new year. Maybe by the end of January though. They have done directs in January before. Yeah,
and it'll also be interesting to see how this all dovetails with the next time we see Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, true.
How do those two exist in relation to one another? Is Metroid Prime 4 going to be, as some have speculated, including some of our very own team members, that Metroid Prime 4 might be the first true cross-gen title for Switch 2, Maybe that's going to happen. Who knows? But I think they've already said, from what I recall, that the next time we're going to hear about Prime 4 is the spring.
Oh, maybe.
I might be making that up. It is 1:30 a.m. It's in LA, but
it sounds right though. They probably won't show it in winter.
Yeah.
It'd be a really interesting game though, because Nintendo's cross-gen has never gone beyond that hardware architecture before. Like Twilight Princess and on GameCube and Wii, same game really. Breath of the Wild and on Wii U and Switch, different architecture, but also pretty much the same game. Like Switch had, it was 720p on Wii U and 900p on Switch, but
basically,
with Prime 4 though, that's going to be a completely different beast. Like you're going from PS3, PS4 level hardware kind of to way beyond that with Switch 2. So
exactly,
the performance and graphical difference has to be vast.
Yeah, I mean there were a handful of games that were enhanced on new 3DS versus playing them on the original 3DS, like I believe Smash and Xenoblade 3D, Xenoblade 1 3D.
Yeah.
But again though, the power differential there between the new 3DS and the original was so small, nothing like what we're seeing between the Switch 2 and Switch 1.
And Prime 4 already looks great on Switch 1. Probably 60 FPS, Prime always is. But yeah, that gameplay clip just looked great. And Prime Remastered looks like a PS5 game sometimes.
Prime Remastered it looks insane for how old the Switch 1 hardware is. It looks insanely good. Yeah.
But I think that's all we can really say for now. Some of this looks convincing, some of it could be. It's so similar to what we've seen before that it's not even worth making a call. Just kind of uninteresting really to talk about. But yeah, some of this could be the real deal. But thank you, Ash, and thank you, live audience, for joining me for this. And we will be down to talk about Switch 2 when it's official. We'll talk about everything about it. We'll talk about the X button. We'll talk about the plus button. All the buttons. Come to us for them. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.